What's going on? What is going on, everybody? Come on in. Let me just share this out real quick. What's going on? All right, there we go. Notifications went out. And let me just share this video real quick. So, how's everybody doing? Come on in. Do me a favor and type 5 if you can see me and hear me all right. Let me make sure that everything's working before we get started. So, if you can hear me just fine, do me a favor and type 5 in the chat. I appreciate y'all. Shannon, what's going on? Charles, what's going on, bro? All right, cool. Y'all can hear me? Y'all can see me? All right, good. Good. Cornelius, what's going on, bro? How you doing, man? Hope everything's good with you and the fam over there. All right, cool. Looks like the notifications, everything went out. So, I know I always say it. I'm going to try to actually do it this time, but I want to keep this one below 30 minutes. And I should be able to do it, but most likely I won't. So tonight I want to have a conversation about blood pressure. Ms. Duncan, what's going on? Appreciate y'all showing up. Do me a favor. If you have anybody in your family that could benefit from information about blood pressure or just health improvement in general, do me a favor, share the video, like the video. And I want to get into this conversation because when it comes to talking about health, in my experience, blood pressure seems to be one of those uh, topics of 101s when it comes to health. Everyone seems to know something about blood pressure. They may have high blood pressure themselves, someone in their family, their mother, their father, their husband, wife, someone. But essentially, everyone knows something about high blood pressure. Now, what they know may not be correct, and we're going to talk about that. And once again, my job, my mission here is not to tell anyone what to think. Um, our mission is to empower you, educate you, give you the truth, and ask that you think for yourself with a critical lens. And we would like for you to analyze the information that you are looking at or receiving. Okay, so and I understand that blood pressure, once again, is one of those big things that everyone knows, but for the most part, we all understand it in a backwards way, and I mean backwards, like we actually understand it in a backwards way. And by having this conversation and starting to kind of understand how we should be looking at blood pressure or a better, helpful way of looking at high blood pressure, um, this can help us understand other things that a lot of us are trying to tackle right now. It's going to be very hard for a lot of us to understand and tackle a lot of these things that's going on right now with the pandemic and stats and therapies and everything like that. Um, when the basics are very confusing. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. All right. So before I get started, just want to check in so everybody's good. Y'all can see me. Y'all can hear me. All right. Good. Shannon says I need to buy some more of your blood pressure tea with the quickness. All right. Yeah. Just either send me a message or head over to the store. I'll type in this website real quick. www. Gods. Here you go. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So I really don't have anything to show you all tonight as far as sharing screen. But I want to tell you a little bit about my history as pertains to blood pressure and how I came to the understanding that I have today. So I told you all about the story with you know getting out the military, enrolling in college, playing Division I football at University of South Florida. That being one of my dreams, one of my biggest accomplishments at that time. Being extremely proud of that. Everybody back home being proud of that. Going back home during, I don't know what holiday it was, but it could have been Christmas. It could have been Thanksgiving. I think it was Thanksgiving. But going back home during Thanksgiving and pretty much, Everyone knew that I just got onto the team, and it was a big deal. But they also knew that I did it in a very fast, at a very fast pace, as far as going from 0 credits to 60 credits in my associate's degree in roughly 6 to 8 months. And so that was a part a lot of people were focusing on. They were like, "Yo, you're smart," and I was like, "Nah, I'm fast." As far as like speed in my 40. So one of my cousins, my older cousin, my big cousin, he pulled me outside and he congratulated me on everything that was going on. And I was like, "Yo, cuz, I appreciate that." And he was like, "But check this out, man." He's like, "So the other day I went to the doctor, or not too long ago, I went to the doctor. They started telling me about this. They checked my blood pressure, and they put me on blood pressure medications." And I was like, "All right, I don't understand what this has to do with football, but okay, cool." And he was like, "But yo, I took the blood pressure medications, and it's been causing me some issues." And still, I'm like, "All right, I'm failing to understand why you're telling me this." And he's like, "So I took these medications, they're causing me issues. I can't take these medications anymore because I can't have those issues. What do I need to do with my blood pressure?" And so I looked at him like, "Cuz, like, why are you asking me about blood pressure? I don't know anything about blood pressure." He was like, "Yo, cuz you smart. Like you went to school, you finished fast, you smart." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I'm athletic. Like I can catch, I can run a 4.40, I can bench 225 pounds 18 times. I got a 40-inch vertical. Like I'm athletic. I just did everything else so I can get there quick." He was like, "Nah, cuz you smart." So what do I need to do? And that was one of the first times in my young life that I felt less than a man, because I'm staring here and looking in my cousin's eyes, who I loved and I looked up to, and who's done a lot for me, and he's looking for me to help him out, and I literally had nothing to tell him at all. And that was a seed. That seed of it was a seed of irritation that was planted, because the way I looked at life and the way I looked at everything, essentially, when it deals with health, would never be the same again. Because once we got done with that conversation out in the yard, I went back in the house feeling deflated because I couldn't provide him with any type of solutions. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, "Man, yeah, I can, catch a football and run it down the field," but I was like, it really doesn't do anybody else any good unless I get to the NFL, which was the plan. But I walked back into the house, and it was like someone just exposed me to the truth. I started looking around my house, my uncle's house, my granduncle's house, during the time of Thanksgiving, and it was like I could see everything. I saw all my loved ones, all my family members, and you had people who were, taking medications. You had some people who had to leave our house to go to do a dialysis treatment. You had people injecting their insulin. You had family members who were on air tanks, oxygen tanks. We had other people having a conversation about, which of our, family members had to go to the emergency room or is still in the hospital. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, holy shit, like, yo, we sick. Like, why are we so sick? And that really bothered me, because here was this huge problem, this blaring problem, um, that I had absolutely no idea how to tackle. I had no solution for. And once again, I literally felt helpless. I felt less than a man, because outside of being athletic, like I couldn't help anybody as far as the health issues go. So that really started my journey. Had a conversation with a family friend, and he was the one who actually suggested that, yeah, why don't you go to medical school? And I was like, hell no, I'm not going to medical school. What are you, crazy? I literally told him, I was like, I'm never picking up a book again. Like, I'm done with books. Long story short, I did it, right. So I went to a PA school, did the schooling, everything like that. But my mission, my goal to going to school was to understand, figure out what the hell was going on as pertains to our community, as pertains to why are we so sick. And of course, the more I learned, the more I studied and learned, I saw that it was more than just blood pressure. It's type 2 diabetes, it's kidney failure, it's amputations, it's blindness, it's heart attacks, it's strokes. And I'm like, why is this happening? What's going on? So after extensive studying, graduating, and I got to the point where I was like, it's really starting to look like the things that we're dealing with are tied closely with the foods that we're eating and the things that we're drinking and the things that we're smoking. But I was like, it can't be that easy because the folks, the medical system would have figured it out. It has to be more to it. And so I studied, did more research, started doing some experimentations, and I came out to the same conclusion that it's not that high blood pressure is running in our family. It's not that high blood pressure is just running through our veins. Well, it's not that these things are being passed on in a genetic fashion. It's that our habits, our lifestyle habits are actually being passed down. It's that we're learning these unhealthy habits as far as how to eat, what to drink, movement versus no movement. Those things are being passed down and we're adopting them and living the same lifestyle that our parents may be living, who may have also had higher blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and other issues. But as far as just passing them down via blood, genetics, that wasn't the truth. And so once I really understood that these conditions that we're facing, such as obesity, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and on and on and on, were largely because of lifestyle. Largely because of lifestyle. Now, that was one big conclusion, but that caused this was like in 2014, where I pretty much had like a episode of mild psychosis because these things couldn't be this straightforward and simple, that the foods were making us sick and that if we just stopped eating the foods, we wouldn't be sick. I was like, it can't be that simple because, you have this big medical system here. They would have figured that out already. Plus, like, the people would have figured that out already. But the more and more I dealt with real people and real doctors and real people from the medical system, it was like it was this big secret that was known but unknown but not spoken about and ignored. Known but not known, not spoken about, and then just pushed to the side and ignored, and medications will replace that. So more and more studying, and then I started to come into another area where this is when I really started to get pushback back in 2014, when I started to say to myself, is high blood pressure really a disease? Because that's what we were taught in school. That's what we were taught, rotations. That's what the official message is. Actually, the official message does not say it's a disease, but that's the message that all the practitioners, all the medical system in general will take and tell you that, high blood pressure is a disease that must be managed with blood medications, lifestyle, XYZ. But the masses, we are calling it a disease. But in the actual black and white literature, they're using vague terms because of legalities. And so they're not calling it a disease. However, everybody else is calling it a disease. So I got to the point where I was like, high blood pressure is not even a disease. How are we treating this non-disease as a disease with medication if it's not a disease? But not only that, understanding what high blood pressure actually was, or what blood pressure is and what makes it high, I also came to the conclusion that we're asking the wrong questions as pertains to blood pressure. That's extremely important, not only with blood pressure, but with everything, including this whole pandemic that's going on. The quality of your question determines the quality of your health. If you ask low quality questions as pertains to your health, you're going to get low quality outcomes. This does not have any weight on you or your value as a person or a human being. It is just the way it is. If you are not able, if you're not dealing with a ethical and well-informed practitioner who has your best interest in mind and who's going to go the extra mile to really try to help you out and move you from the direction of getting on medications, then you're going to get taken advantage of. And that's just the way it works. The practitioner doesn't even have to be purposely trying to take advantage of you, but just because of the way the system works, by proxy, you're going to be taken advantage of. That's how it works a lot of times. And so if you don't have the ability to ask a higher quality of question, then you're going to eventually have a lower quality of health. And so when it comes to blood pressure and high blood pressure, all my patients, all my clients, when it comes to asking that question, they get to the point where they know they no longer ask me, yo, what do I need to take to get my blood pressure down? We've had the conversation so much and we've gone so in and out. I've shown them the video. I have a video called The Truth About High Blood Pressure, to the point where they no longer ask the question of what do I need to take to get my blood pressure down. They now ask the question of what is my blood pressure responding to? And that's going to be the gist of this conversation. All right. So everybody follow me so far? Everybody follow me so far? All right, y'all still there. All right, so let's keep on going. So let's talk a little bit about just the basics of high blood pressure. The blood pressure levels and standards and metrics is something that continuously changes. Right now, the current standing is that a blood pressure of 120 over 80 is considered to be normal. And that's across the board. It doesn't matter if you are a white female the size of Miley Cyrus, or if you are a black male the size of LeBron James. A normal blood pressure for Miley Cyrus and LeBron James is 120 over 80. Now, I have questions about this broad recommendation, this broad brushstroke for everyone to have the exact same metrics as pertains to their own personal health, as pertains to their lifestyle and what they have going on. I find that to be problematic, but as it stands right now, the official normal blood pressure reading is going to be anything 120 over 80, below 120 over 80. Once you start going above, 130 systolic to 139, they call that stage 1. And if your bottom number, your diastolic, is 80 through 89, that's called stage 1 hypertension. Stage 2 hypertension is going to be 140 as far as your systolic, your top number, and your bottom number, your diastolic, over 90 is going to be considered stage 2. And then once you start going over 80, they're going to call it a hypertensive crisis. And then higher than that, you have a hypertensive emergency. So it's important to know that back in 2017, these numbers are new. These numbers are updated as of 2017. But before 2017, the organization that was responsible for determining blood pressure standards was called the JNC, Joint National Committee. And the JNC, they had from JNC 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 8. And then at JNC 8 was actually, let me see. Yeah, JNC 8 was actually the one that made the most sense. But essentially, the Joint National Committee was a group of people who got together and who looked at the science, supposedly, allegedly, looked at the science, saw the issues with blood pressure and medications and death, mortality, morbidity, all those things, and said that, well, based on this, we believe blood pressure should be here. We're going to put prehypertension right here. We're going to put stage 1 right here. We're going to put stage 2 right there. So there was a group of people who were actually sitting down and making these decisions, which that was extremely problematic. And that's a whole different conversation. Before I go, I will link you all to my video that I did. It's like a 40-minute video on blood pressure, the truth about high blood pressure. And that video will tell you about the problems with the JNC, the Joint National Committees, and the financial ties that they had with the blood pressure manufacturers, people who were actually making medications for the blood pressure pills. But nonetheless, JNC 8 actually determined that if a person is under 60, a blood pressure of the top number 150, below that, they were fine. And they also said that a person under 60 having a diastolic number below 90, they were fine, no treatment. And they came up with that conclusion based on the evidence. Now, JNC 8 was supposedly one of the few, this is what the actual advisors on this panel of JNC 8 said. They actually made their decisions based on science, throwing shade at the other panels, saying that they didn't make theirs based on science. It was more so based on financial ties, because you can look at the series of JNCs and see that they were constantly bringing the blood pressure levels down, lower, lower, and lower and lower. And so eventually, as those blood pressure readings go down, the standards go down. Every time it goes down, you get more customers. Because if one day you woke up, if one day you went to bed and the normal blood pressure reading is 140 over 80, and then you wake up the next morning and the normal blood pressure reading is 120 over 80, well, you just made millions, because you now have millions of new customers who now meet that criteria of being sick. And that is exactly what happened in 2017. That's when they decreased the blood pressure standards from a 140 over 80 down to a 120 over 80. And this was taken away from the JNC. So they pretty much pushed the JNC 8 out, and then that's when the American Heart Association started to dictate what normal blood pressure would be. There was a lot of problems with this, because a lot of the medical community wanted to know, where was the evidence for such a steep change? Where was the evidence for such a drastic change? And this is what we call diagnosis creep, which is a very good term for you all to understand and do a little bit of research, because I don't know if you all know it or not, but you're kind of witnessing that right now. Let me actually pull up the my slides. So I don't have any slides to read to you all, but I have slides right in front of me from a previous presentation that I did earlier. But diagnosis creep is something very, very interesting. Essentially, diagnosis creep is when you are telling the public, you're telling the people that in order for you to have a certain disease, your blood pressure, or let's say blood pressure, for example, your blood pressure has to be above 140 or above 80 diastolic. And if you go above that, then you now have a disease. You now have an ICD-10 code. You are now labeled as having a disease. And so diagnosis creep will say that that number, the criteria to be considered hypertensive, will drop. So instead of it being 140 systolic, it'll drop to 130. Now, anything above 130 is considered to be hypertensive, which means you get an ICD-10 code, which means that you now have a disease and you're now eligible to be treated with medications. And this is exactly what was taking place with blood pressure. So 140, 135, 130, 120 is where we're at now. And you literally, I kid you all now, you have people who are demanding that we drop this thing down to 115 as far as a normal systolic number. You have to understand that every time you move that goalpost, every time you move that metric, you creep that metric down lower, you're creating a new market. You're creating more profit. You're creating more customers, because every time you bring it down, you're making it broader and you're making it wider to include more people who are going to come into your system, who are going to potentially take medications for a disease that they may not even benefit from. And that is the great danger with diagnosis creep, is labeling people as being sick, which already causes a psychological issue. It already causes fear. It already causes great anxiety, because who wants to be labeled as having a disease? Of course, they start thinking about death. And so you start thinking about death because someone tells you that, your blood pressure is 135 over, 78. That 135 is a problem. We need you at 120. You have high blood pressure. And so that is a disease. So you have a disease. And now you're being told that you have a disease. What are people going to automatically think? What are people going to automatically think about when they hear you have a disease? They're going to think about death. They're going to think about them dying, right? So fear will then be used to push medications. And at no point, and I've showed you all the site called the nnt.com, but there's no evidence to show or to prove that treating a blood pressure, mild hypertension, provides you any benefits as pertains to mortality and morbidity, meaning sickness and death, complications and death. There's no evidence whatsoever. So this is the great danger and harm in diagnosis creep. This is the great danger and harm in broadening up metrics to include more people. This is the great harm in constantly moving the goalposts, saying that one day this is what's considered to be a disease, and then the next day this is what's considered to be a disease. You got to watch these folks. You have to watch these folks because diagnosis creep is happening right now as we speak. Right now as we speak. Remember, one shot. Then you remember 2 shots. That didn't work. Delta came. And then now 3 shots. And well, that's not working. Lambda, and Mu are here. Over in Israel, they're already saying 4 shots. Fauci came out today and said 3 shots for sure every year. Welcome to diagnosis creep, where we're giving everybody medications, regardless of whether they'll benefit or not. They're getting this medication. They're getting this work because by doing diagnosis creep, we create a huge market. So why stop with 1 shot? And why stop with 1 year? Well, we can do this thing 3 times a year, every single year. So I don't want to get into the conversation about COVID because this is about blood pressure, but I just wanted to make sure you all understood diagnosis creep. And if you're wondering if I'm a little tired, I am a little tired, but we're gonna push through this thing. So those were the metrics or the standards for high blood pressure. What's considered to be high blood pressure? Now, when it comes to high blood pressure, you have primary hypertension and then you have secondary hypertension. Let's start with secondary hypertension. So secondary hypertension is elevated blood pressure that is specifically coming from a known cause, such as renal stenosis. This is when the actual arteries leading to the kidneys are stiffened, hardened, to the point where in order for the kidneys to have blood flow, to get that proper blood perfusion, the blood pressure has to go up. So with secondary, we are actually able to identify the cause and the reason for why someone's blood pressure is elevated. That's secondary. When we go to primary, something else you need to know about secondary, out of all the high blood pressure cases in America, hypertensive cases in America, not just in America, but in the world, it's said that 5 to 10% are made up of secondary hypertension. Whereas 90 to 95% of people who have high blood pressure fall into the category of primary hypertension. So primary hypertension is also known as essential hypertension, which is also known as idiopathic hypertension. Does anybody know what any of those things mean? Because it's really just fancy talk for, we don't really know why your blood pressure is high. Idiopathic hypertension, idiopathic in general, literally means unknown cause. We're not really sure. So when it comes to high blood pressure, primary hypertension, essential hypertension, which are the same thing, idiopathic, these 3 names are the same thing. The underlying cause is unknown. I want y'all to chew on that for a little bit. I want you to think about that for a little bit. 90 to 95% of people who have high blood pressure are labeled as having essential hypertension, which means that the cause is unknown. Tell me this. If the cause is unknown, then what the hell are you treating? What are you treating? How are you going to treat something you don't even know what's causing it? Where they do that at? You know where they do that at. So if we're treating high blood pressure and we don't know what really caused it, how long do you think you're going to be on that medication? How long do you think you're going to be on that medication? So that is the problem with not thinking outside the box. That is the problem from just being locked into uh, essentially this group think when it comes to everything, really. So let's keep going on. Now, when you look at my title, what's my title? My title is You're Looking at It All Wrong. Does high blood pressure cause heart disease, or does heart disease cause high blood pressure? And I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds crazy because why? What is the reason we were told that you have to manage your blood pressure? You have to, decrease your blood pressure. Think about it. Why do we? Why are we so concerned about our blood pressure? Anybody know? And I want you to give me your honest, reason that you were told or that you're understanding, because we don't do the whole shaming over here. This is an education empowerment platform. But in order for me to better assist my people, my family, you all my family members, I need to understand what you all are thinking, where you all are at. So as pertains to high blood pressure, what is your understanding for why you want to manage it? Why you want to take medication to keep it in a good level? Why is it important? What is your understanding? So, and I'll wait for the comments to come in, but I'll go ahead and talk about just people's general response. So, for the most part, when people think about high blood pressure, there it goes. Boom, everybody popped in. So Doreen says to prevent heart attack and stroke. That's right. That's definitely the top reasons people are telling you that, right? Linda says it causes stroke. Ms. Duncan says it causes stroke. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That is the reason why. So I'm not saying you're right as far as high blood pressure causes stroke, because it doesn't. But that is the reason why the majority of us are monitoring our blood pressure. The majority of us are taking medications, and the majority of us actually are aware of our blood pressure readings. We are aware because we were told that these things will cause heart attack, stroke, kidney disease, and so on and so forth. Right, exactly. Everybody's in there, right? So I want you all to pretend. Let's do a little bit pretending for a little bit right now. Presently, right now, we're told that essential hypertension increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. When we talk about cardiovascular disease, we're talking about the heart, we're talking about the vasculature, the system, the arteries and the veins that are composed in the actual cardiovascular system. And then we know what disease is, right? And so, what's very important for you all to understand is that when we're talking about the circulatory system, the cardiovascular system, we are, and you all heard me say this before, but we are talking about 60,000 miles of blood vessel. 60,000 miles, 60,000, 60,000 miles of blood vessel. In order for you to get an idea, get an understanding of just how much that really is, understand that the planet Earth is 25,000 miles in circumference, meaning that if you go around planet Earth, you're talking about 25,000 miles around to get from point A all the way back to point A. 25,000 miles. On average, we have a circulatory system that can stretch out the length of 60,000 miles. This means that we have something in our body that can wrap around planet Earth 2.5 times around. 2.5 times around. That's a lot. And that's extremely impressive as far as I'm concerned. And so, with that system being so massive, it stands to reason that that system needs to have built-in adaptations and built-in a built-in ability to overcome any type of adversity that it faces. Because once we understand that our blood, our red blood cells, they actually serve a purpose, right? So our red blood cells, we have trillions of cells. Our body is just a collection of cells. We have trillions of cells, anywhere from 37 trillion all the way up to 100 trillion cells, and trillion with a T. And all of those cells have needs. They need nutrients, it needs oxygen, and then from the nutrients and oxygen, it creates waste. And that red blood cell is responsible for delivering the needs and then removing the waste and then taking it back to the right side of the heart so that the right side of the heart can now take it to the lip, to take it to the lung, and then the lung is going to oxygenate it and send it back to the actual left side. And so this is a system, this is a process that goes on and on and on. But those cells need the blood. They need it. Without it, it's going to cause it's going to cause a decrease in perfusion, which when we're talking about a decrease in perfusion, we're talking about the cells essentially not having the blood that it needs, which is going to cause a problem. Ischemia is going to be the first problem, which is low blood flow to the point where it starts to cause damage to the actual cell. And then infarction, which is cell death. Okay. And so these are things we don't want to happen. 60,000 miles of blood vessel, right? We agree that that's incredibly, that's massive. So we are told that hypertension increases the chance of cardiovascular disease. I'm asking you to look at it the other way around, just for a moment. What if cardiovascular disease actually caused high blood pressure? So once again, when we're thinking about cardiovascular disease, we're talking about diseased arteries. We're talking about suboptimal vasculature, right? We're talking about atherosclerotic plaques. We're talking about thickening of the arteries. We're talking about narrowing of the arteries, arteriosclerosis, which is also hardening of the arteries. So we're talking about diseased blood vessels. Okay. So when we're talking about diseased blood vessels, and you can take it from the actual plaque buildup. So once again, let's just say that this is your artery. If we have plaque buildup, then we know that you have pretty much, instead of it being a perfect round artery like that, you now have plaque buildup. When we're talking about, and that's called atherosclerosis. When we're talking about arteriosclerosis, we're talking about the actual stiffening and hardening of the arteries. So with arteries should be elastic. They should have the ability to expand and then recoil. So they should be able to do like this. And that's what a healthy artery would do. However, when that artery is stiffened, instead of it expanding the way it should, it's not going to expand the way that it should because the arteries itself have become diseased. And when that starts to take place, that expansion and that recoil will not happen, but also your arteries will be compromised. They'll be weaker, and the blood pressure will have to go up in order for you to get that blood to those trillions of cells. Just think about where the blood has to go. We're talking about these vital organs. We're talking about blood has to go to your brain, blood has to go to your kidneys, has to go to your liver, it has to go to the heart itself. And so the body doesn't have the luxury to take a day off. Like the heart doesn't have the luxury to take a day off. Your blood flowing through all of those cells, it does not have a luxury to just, take the day off and not worry about it. It has to get the blood to those trillions of cells every single second by any means necessary. So this means that even if you have plaque buildup in your artery, and that plaque buildup is now slowing down the flow, is decreasing the flow of the blood going through your arteries, that is going to signal stress from the organs that it's going through, because those organs will have a decrease in perfusion, and your body, your organs are going to send out signals, which is going to make your heart respond. One of the way your heart can respond is by actually increasing the contractility to get the blood pressure up, because it needs to get past this blockage in a more efficient way versus just staying at 120 over 80. 120 over 80 with a blockage may not be sufficient enough to provide blood to your trillions of cells. And so your heart may have to contract harder in a way to get that blood pressure up to 140 over 80 or 150 over 90. Also, your body has the ability to cause vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction is when your arteries go from being dilated like this to being constricted. This is also going to lead to an increase in the blood pressure. Also, nitric oxide is something that causes vasodilation. And so overall, the point is that when the arteries are compromised, it is only natural, it's normal, it is the proper functioning for your blood pressure to increase. Are you all following me with that so far? I want to make sure I'm not losing you all. You have trillions of cells. Trillions. Those cells they can't go more than seconds without getting blood. If that happens, then those cells will start to die. And if it goes even longer, then those cells will die, right? Your body's not going to allow that to happen if it can avoid it. And so since it can avoid it, it's going to do what it needs to do. One of the body's weapons and tools is to have the ability to increase your blood pressure, whether that be by vasoconstriction, increasing the contractility of your heart. Is going to adapt. What I'm telling you all is that high blood pressure is not a disease. It's a protective mechanism. And I know it's going to take it may take you a couple of days to really let that set in. But the very thing that we are calling a disease, the very thing that we are calling the silent killer, the very thing that we are demonizing and throwing medications on top of, is not your enemy. It's actually your ally. And in fact, if we did not have the ability to adapt to stiffened arteries or to adapt to blocked arteries, we would all just die. Think about that. If your artery was blocked, you have plaque in your artery, and 120/80 was just not enough. It's just not enough. You think about when you're washing your car and you're putting sludge on it, and you have the hose slightly turned up, and the water is like just coming out the hose, but it's like just falling down. But you still need to rinse the car off. Now you can rinse the car off with that little low flow, or you can do what? You can put your thumb on it to increase the pressure. By increasing the pressure, you're able to optimize the flow and to actually get the sludge off. If you have a blockage in your artery and that blockage is slowing down the perfusion of those trillions of cells, time is of essence, because if you allow that decreased blood flow to go on too long, then cells start to die. Your body you can't afford that. And so your body will now adapt by activating its protective mechanism, which is increasing your blood pressure. High blood pressure is not a disease. High blood pressure is not the silent killer. High blood pressure is an adaptive, protective mechanism. And if we did not have the ability to increase our blood pressure, then we would just die. The question we should be asking is not, what do we need to do to get our blood pressure down? We need to be asking the question, or I recommend that we ask the question of, what is my blood pressure responding to? That is a higher quality question. Because asking the question of, what do I need to take to get my blood pressure down? Pretty much you are just ignoring the intelligence of your body. You're pretty much just saying that your body's making a mistake. Your body doesn't know what it's doing. And so you need to step in and throw some kind of medications or herbs on top of it to put your body in check. That's what asking the question of, what do I need to take, denotes. Like, that's what that means. However, when you ask the question of, what is my blood pressure responding to, that denotes the fact that you understand that your body is not just acting randomly. You understand that you have a body that was designed in a very intelligent way, and that it is adapting, and that is doing this for a reason. And so you understand that your blood pressure being high is an indicator. That there is something else going on in the cardiovascular system. You understand that the blood pressure being high is only responding to the environment of your arteries. If you have a sick, diseased vasculature as an environment for your blood to flow through, that is going to be seen on the blood pressure cuff. However, what you see on the blood pressure cuff is not the disease. that is just indicating or letting you know, or it's just a symptom that you have diseased arteries. You have suboptimal artery. But before the blood pressure can go up, the environment has to be in place first. Y'all follow me? Your blood pressure is not just going up on its own. Your blood pressure is responding to the environment of suboptimal diseased arteries. Once again, cardiovascular disease is diseased arteries. And so when we're talking about high blood pressure causing heart disease, it's really the other way around. Cardiovascular disease is causing high blood pressure. High blood pressure is a manifestation of cardiovascular disease. Your blood pressure is letting you know that the arteries, this road that I have to drive through, is bumpy. It needs repair. It needs to be reconstructed. There's problems out there. However, with this system that we're currently in, as far as pertains to health, they have created these numbers, made it the same across the board. No matter if you are Miley Cyrus or LeBron James, y'all need to have the same blood pressure. And anything above this is considered to be hypertensive. And once we get into the hypertensive area, we can give you a little bit to decrease it. And if that don't works, we're going to put you on medications. Now, everybody understand that part about, once again, you don't just think about it. You don't have to accept that as being true. But just think about that. Try to figure out where I'm wrong at. Try to figure out, where I may have missed up. Like I said, I'll put the video in here where there's like a 40-minute video of me talking about blood pressure and the truth about high blood pressure. But I want you all to think about it. You don't have to accept what I'm saying as being true or anything like that. But I want you to also look at this. So blood pressure medications don't work. All right. They just don't. There's no proof or evidence that treating a patient who has mild hypertension with blood pressure medications is going to decrease mortality and morbidity. Once again, mortality and morbidity, we're talking about sickness, complications that comes from having high blood pressure or just death. And the reason why that's not going to happen is because, once again, here we go. Let me give you the analogy that kind of like really. So I was in the Air Force for 6 years, F-16 crew chief, mechanic, right? So I did a lot of schooling to understand everything about an F-16. And trust me, it's not a job you want to take lightly. You are in charge of that aircraft. You have to make sure that that aircraft is mission ready to take off. You have to make sure that everything is as tight as possible as far as being able to perform and function in the air safely, and then land back down and get back to your stop in a safe manner. So it's not a light job. You have a lot of responsibility. And you're also talking about, the life of an actual city that you live in, because that aircraft crashes with those fuel tanks on it. In they weren't real missiles. Well, we put real missiles on when it was time for, that time. But when we're just flying over our own, city, just stimulating, they're not real missiles. But nonetheless, so when you study the aircraft and you have to understand everything about it, you don't have time for like your feelings. You don't have time to try to make things fit a certain narrative so that you can support this company that sells a certain part. Because the government works on a very tight budget. They're all about efficiency when they come. Well, shit, used to be. But you're not just going to be out there buying parts just because your friend owns a company. You're not just going to be out there throwing away parts because you use it once or twice. You're not going to be out there ignoring metal shavings inside the oil. There's a lot of things you're not going to be ignoring. And so when you have issues with the aircraft, you have to actually find out what the cause is. If I'm changing the oil on my aircraft, and it could be just my car, if I'm changing the oil on my aircraft and I see that there is metal shavings in the oil. I can't ignore that. I mean, I could. I definitely could just dump it out, screw back on the filter, and then add more oil and act like I never saw that oil filter. You can't do that. Court martial, Article 15, like if you knowingly see metal shavings in your oil from your aircraft and you just decide to ignore that, just get ready to say goodbye to your career. So that oil shavings, the oil shavings that you may find in there needs to be investigated. Where is this oil? Where is the shavings coming from? Where there should not be metal in my oil. This means that we now have to pull out the engine. This means we have to now investigate. This means that we have to get to the actual root of the problem. Me not getting to the root of the problem would be me just dumping the oil and adding more oil and letting that jet take off. This is what we're seeing a lot of times with our healthcare system. Blood pressure high, give it some medications. That's the equivalent of oil, like metal shavings in the oil. Dump out the oil, add more oil. What's the problem? However, by understanding that your blood pressure is a manifestation of diseased arteries, that's going to make you explore more as far as trying to understand what the problem is. So I was bringing up that analogy because I want you all to look at blood pressure as a check engine light. When you're driving, the check engine light comes on. You're not just going to unplug the wire to the check engine light. You're not going to just take a tape and cover up the check engine light. Why are you not going to do that? Because you understand that the check engine light itself is not the problem. You understand that the check engine light is indicating that there is a problem. So what you're going to do is that you're going to take it to your mechanic, or you're going to take it to an AutoZone or somewhere where it can be properly diagnosed. The reason why you're doing this is because you understand that the check engine light is not your enemy. The check engine light is not something that you need to get rid of. The check engine light is not something that you just need to treat and move on with. You understand that check engine light in this situation is your ally, warning you that there's something going on with the engine. And if you don't address it soon, it can become a bigger issue, which can become a very expensive issue, or it can cause the vehicle to ultimately die, the engine. And so we should see our blood pressure in a very similar fashion. Your blood pressure is not a disease. It is not a problem, but it is indicating to you that there is a problem, but it is not the problem. And so taking medications and throwing it on top of the blood pressure that is high is essentially the same thing that you're doing when you are just unplugging your check engine light or covering your check engine light with a piece of duct tape. The problem didn't go anywhere. You may feel better because you don't have to see that check engine light. But guess what? The very thing that made the check engine light come on is still there and is still progressing. Same thing with blood pressure. You can throw medications on top of it. You can throw hydrochlorothiazide, lisinopril, amlodipine. You can throw all these medications on top of blood pressure. But if you're not addressing the actual reason for the blood pressure being increased, the pathogenesis of the process that caused the blood pressure to increase is going to still be there, and it's going to progress. There's only one thing that you can do, one group, one factor that you can do to actually decrease your blood pressure for long term. And it's not by directly trying to deal with your blood pressure, because once again, your blood pressure is not your problem. I hope you all understand that. Like, just by taking medications or taking some kind of fancy gimmick to lower the blood pressure, like with these medications, labetalol, amlodipine, these things work by blocking receptors, inhibiting enzymes, by working on the distal tubules of the kidneys. So essentially, they perform tricks and gimmicks. So they work as far as making sure that when you measure it, it looks lower, but they don't work as far as actually dealing with the stiffened arteries. They don't work as far as dealing with the actual plaque buildup in your arteries. In order for you to actually address that, you have to actually get to the root cause, which is in most cases lifestyle. So I'll say all that to get back to this. Yeah, that food talk, the drink talk, the exercise talk, the things that many of us understand that we should be doing. But some of us have been lulled to sleep by thinking that medications are going to save you. And I'm here to let you know medications are not going to save you. It's not. Medications are not going to save you. What you're going to experience from medications is a symbolic victory. I mean, yeah, you measure your blood pressure reading on the cuff, and it might look better. You'll check your labs, and your A1C may be lower. You do all those things, but as far as actual real health that you can walk away from, medications don't help. And it's always easy to prove that, because what happens when you stop taking the medications? So let's say you're taking the medication for blood pressure, and you're living the same lifestyle that you were living that got you the diagnosis. And you continue living that same lifestyle, and you just started taking the medications. The medications got your blood pressure down to that area, 120/80. My question is to you, do you own that 120/80, or are you renting that 120/80? Are you leasing that 120/80? The answer is that you're renting that 120/80. So that version of health that you are happy with, that you are pleased with, doesn't even belong to you. And the way you can verify, well, don't do this. This is not medical advice, but this can always be verified by you missing the medication. If you miss the medication, it's like missing a payment on a vehicle that you leased out. What happens? It gets repoed, right? So that blood pressure of 120/80 that was being contributed to you by amlodipine will be repossessed when you go 2 days without taking it. It gets taken away. And then you see the truth, which is that 150/90. However, if we were to actually incorporate lifestyle improvements, whatever results you get from that, that is yours. You are now actually an owner of your own health. Many of us who are relying on medications for quote unquote health, we don't own our health. We're renting them out, which means that we're putting outside individuals in charge of our idea of health. And at any moment, they can just pull the rug from under us by not prescribing your medication, changing your medication, having a shortage of medication, which we saw last year with the beginning of COVID with insulin. And now you're in a situation where you feel like you have to depend on these folks to provide you with health. It's not a good position to be in. You never want to have to rely on the government if you can avoid that. So I hope you all understand. High blood pressure is not a disease. High blood pressure is merely an indicator of diseased vasculature. Diseased vasculature is what they call a form of cardiovascular disease. In order for high blood pressure to exist, that diseased vasculature has to be there first. The environment must be created first. Therefore, high blood pressure does not cause cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease causes high blood pressure. High blood pressure is a symptom of cardiovascular disease. You can have different degrees of cardiovascular disease, from mild, moderate, severe, but nonetheless, those arteries have to be in suboptimal shape in order for your blood pressure to have to respond in that way on a chronic basis. I hope you all understand. So I want you all to think about what I just said. I'm going to go ahead and post a link to that video I was telling you about. It's about 40 minutes. Let me find it real quick. Go ahead, put your comments or your questions in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So I'm going to go back through those questions real quick. So let's see. Let's see. There it goes. Hold on real quick. I'm just copying this link. All right, let me post it real quick. All right, so that's I'd say it was 40 minutes, but it's actually longer than that. But trust me, if you have questions about high blood pressure, if you want to understand high blood pressure, did that link come through? Let me try it again. If you have questions about high blood pressure, everything from what it is, how it came to be, if you want to know what to do about it, my recommendations of high blood pressure, that video lays out everything. That presentation, yeah, it's an hour, but it is an hour of a intellectual body slam as pertains to anatomy and physiology in general, but also understanding high blood pressure. I really want you all to really understand high blood pressure, because before we go out there trying to talk about these other things that are going on right now, if you don't understand just the basics of how they hustle a whole entire nation with something as simple and straightforward as blood pressure, because mind you, mind you, the majority of people who are unfortunately hospitalized with COVID right now have high blood pressure. Um, High blood pressure has only been increasing in this country. There are no shortages of different types of blood pressure medications. The mortality and morbidity rate for blood pressure related, which you all know how I feel about that, deaths have essentially been the same while increasing slightly. And so they're still struggling with this whole blood pressure thing while misnaming it a disease, misnaming it as something that's genetic and lifestyle, I mean, genetic and something that runs in your family, while also saying that it's essential, idiopathic, and unknown, while also saying that we're going to treat you for it with medications to target the thing that we don't know what caused it. So understand that, because once you understand that, and you understand disease creep, and you understand, how people can change your life overnight by just making a decision based on their financial ties, I believe that this will clear your lens as pertains to kind of seeing what's going on right now with everything we're dealing with this whole pandemic. All right, so I just posted a link. It should be working. Okay, see, I had a problem with it, but it should be right there. But like I said, that video is an hour long, but it has everything you're going to need. It's going to answer most of your questions as far as high blood pressure goes. I go over my recommendations for exercise. I go over recommendations for minerals, electrolytes. I go over recommendations for things you should drink, the foods that you should consume. Of course, talk about vitamin D, talk about stress. There's a lot of things that I go over. So it's very important that if you have any questions about those things, you want to make sure you check out that video. That way you can watch that at your convenience. You can slow it down, you can speed it up. And if you have any questions still after that, then of course you can let me know. You can reach out to me and we can get back to you. But I'm pretty sure we covered a decent amount with that video. All right, so let me go back through and read these comments. All right, Linda says, I also told 2 doctors this regarding hypertension pills and other so-called diagnosed disease. Let's see. Charles says, blood pressure meds do not improve health. They aim to treat symptoms, which is a perpetual process. Yeah. So you're not dealing with the actual root. And that's, once again, that's why you're not going to see that decrease in mortality and morbidity. What else? Let's see. My first time scrolling across your live, I appreciate it. Oh, you're welcome, Linda. No problem. Lifestyle matters. Absolutely. Clog, hardened arteries. Yep. All right. Let's see. All right, so Bridget says, Bridget Garner says, what about stress and anxiety raising blood pressure? Yeah, so that's a real thing. The thing with stress and anxiety increasing your blood pressure, so that's the actual real physiological process because that activates the sympathetic nervous system. So you all heard me speak about, um, fight or flight. So you have your autonomic nervous system, which when we talk about autonomic, it is just like what it sounds. It's things that are automated in our body, dealing with our nervous system. So my heart beating is not something that I'm thinking about, but it is beating, and it's being done by my autonomic nervous system. Um, my Me breathing, yeah, I can control that. I can stop that, but this whole time I was talking, I was thinking about it. Me couldn't blink in my eyes. There's a lot of things that we're doing where it's just being executed automatically, and we're not thinking about it. And so within the autonomic nervous system, you have sympathetic, and then you have parasympathetic. Sympathetic, also known as fight, flight, and then you have parasympathetic, which is also known as feed and breathe, rest and digest. So fight or flight deals with the aspects of your body that will be needed in the time of an emergency, where you have to either fight or you have to actually flee the scene. And so stimulation that increases that feeling of fear, stress, anxiety, all those things puts you in a fight or flight. And everybody has a different response to it. And so let's say you are walking and then a giraffe hops out and it starts swinging its neck at you. Well, that's going to be pretty crazy for you to see. You're going to be afraid. It's going to frighten you. You now have two choices. You want to fight the giraffe, or you want to go ahead and try to run from the giraffe. Now, mind you, you might run for a good half a mile, and that giraffe neck is long, so you just have to like lay its neck down and still snatch you up. But you have to make a decision to fight or to run. If you're going to do either of the two, fight or run, uh, the blood has to be redirected. So when you're trying to survive, you don't need blood going to your gut because you need blood going to your legs. You need blood going to your arms. You also need vasodilation of the lungs. You also need hormones increased. So there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to need. And so your body is going to, in the sympathetic nervous system, your body's going to adapt to a survival stance. And so there's going to be an increase in blood pressure to get the blood flowing to your legs and to your arms. And that's going to also decrease the flow to your gut. And you're going to see the opposite when we talk about parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, feed, and breathe. And so a lot of times, if you think about what I just said about the decreased blood flow to your gut when you're stressed out, well, proper blood flow to your gut is essential for proper breakdown of your food. A lot of times what you'll see are that people who are suffering or dealing with anxiety and depression have GI issues, gastrointestinal issues as well. And that's because they're literally stressed out. And there is a decrease in blood flow. Well, that's not the total reason, but that has a lot to do with it. The fact that they have a decreased blood flow to their gut to actually help optimize the digestion of the foods and everything else that they have going on. So, what was your question? What about stress? Yeah, so stress and anxiety will increase your blood pressure, but usually with stress and anxiety, we don't consider that to be true hypertension. That is more transient hypertension because if you are able to sit there and think about the beach or something calming and your blood pressure goes down, if you are stressed out and your blood pressure is at 160 over 99, and then we're able to get you to sit there and calm down and take some deep breaths and just relax, and we're able to get your blood pressure to 120 over 80, then you don't really truly have high blood pressure, essential hypertension. You're just stressed out, and you need vacation. You need some time off. You need to address that stress because that's what's going on. However, when we start talking about disease arteries, when we start talking about disease vasculature, arteriosclerosis, atherosclerosis, that's not something that you can just take a deep breath and get down, because those are structural issues with the vasculature that makes sense to you. And so you're not going to just deep breathe that away. In order for that to go down, in order for your blood pressure to improve, remodeling will have to take place. And that remodeling will only take place with making the improvements in your dietary lifestyle and the drinking and the movement. All right. All right, y'all. I'm about to get off. Let me see what else. Linda says, what's your suggested recommendation to correct hypertension? Yeah, Linda, so please do me a favor. Check out this video right here that I have linked. I go through it. I tell you about everything. I'll lay out my recommendations, but I'll kind of do a spoiler alert. So for a lot of people, it's not a matter of it really comes down to what they need to stop doing. Like for the majority of my patients and the majority of my online clients, it really comes down to what they need to stop doing. So I may need them to stop smoking. I may need them to stop drinking beer. I may need them to stop eating so late. I may need them to stop eating so frequently throughout the day. I may need them to stop drinking soda and juice. I may need them to stop being stagnant and sitting all day long. So there's a lot of things that we are doing on a daily basis that is making us unhealthy. So before we start bringing other things into it, because I understand that there's a huge temptation to talk about, what type of supplements and drinks and foods I can take and what's my top 5 foods for blood pressure and XYZ. And, all that's cool, but I always tell everybody, be careful with that. Even for someone like me who actually sells herbal tea and sells herbs for blood pressure, I still want you all to be cool with that, because I want to make sure you understand that the blood pressure tea doesn't work if you're not working. So if you are still eating the same lifestyle that made your blood pressure increase, you drinking blood pressure tea or you taking supplements is pretty much a waste of time. The only way the supplements or the tea is going to assist is if you start actually assisting on the dietary side. So don't just think that you can take a food or herb or something magical that's going to just wipe away your blood pressure concerns. It doesn't work like that. Many people will try to sell you on those things and tell you that it works like that, but it doesn't work like that. You can get your blood pressure to normal level just by lifestyle alone, not buying anything, just drinking water, making sure you're getting enough sunlight, deep breathing, meditation, exercising. You have to exercise. Fasting 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, getting some greens in your life, salad. These are all practical things that you can do. These are all things to talk about in the actual video. But before you reach out and start buying different things, really ask yourself, what can I stop doing? Because there's a really good chance that you are doing multiple things that are increasing your blood pressure on a daily basis. And then if you get to the point where you say, yeah, there's multiple things that I'm doing, such as, drinking soda, drinking juice, smoking, not exercises, but I'm not willing to change any of those things. I'll tell you straight up, there's no point in buying anything from me as far as, my supplements or my tea, because you're just wasting your money. Because once again, I don't want to be a part of you hustling yourself. Like, you can buy from someone else to allow them to let you hustle yourself, but I don't want to be a part of that whole fairy tale that you just think you're going to take something and it's going to magically wipe away all your concerns and your worries. It doesn't work like that. You have to actually put in work. You got to start exercising. You got to start drinking water. Your body needs water. You have to start eating greens. You have to stop eating so much. So start just chiseling away at little things. One of the places where a lot of my patients get their first big win is by cutting out juice and soda. Like, matter of fact, the patient's not new, but this is his first time following up after getting his labs. But we were going in, he claimed, my patients, man, they're interesting. They can be interesting at times, but you can always tell when, you have to kind of slow them down. Ones who want to be super ambitious, I appreciate it, but sometimes you have to kind of see that you got to save them from themselves, because you know that they're going to crash and burn if they try to do everything at once. And so even though I admire the ambition, bro, before you try to do 20 things at one time, let's just prove that you can do one thing at one time. Cut out all the soda and juice. Do that for 7 days and then holler at me before we start doing 1,000 things. All right. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna go ahead and hop off. You're a veteran. Oh, yes, that's right. You're a medical student, doctor. I'm a physician assistant. I practice medicine over here in Florida. Appreciate it, Linda. All right. So Shannon says, by taking the high blood pressure tea, when can I see my blood pressure numbers to come down? How long? Yeah. So everybody's going to be different. Once again, it really depends on the health of your arteries. It's really going to depend on that. Where your blood pressure number is at now. And just like I was saying a little while ago, you have to make sure that you're incorporating other things as well. So I would definitely say, look at what you're doing or not doing, and then don't worry about trying to do everything or change everything at once. Just grab one and do for 7 days. All right. So ask yourself, are you drinking soda, juice? And how much water are you drinking? Because your consumption of fluid should mainly be water. If you're trying to get your blood pressure, if you're just trying to be healthy in general, it should mainly be water. Next, are you exercising? And when I say exercise, I don't mean like, going to the gym, whole workout plan, doing high intensity interval training, which these are all good things. You can do them. But at the bare minimum, are you walking? Are you purposely walking at a pretty decent pace, getting the heart pumping, the blood flow? Are you doing that on a daily basis? Because this is something that I recommend that you do on a daily basis. Are you eating greens? Like, when's the last time you had a salad or a green smoothie? And I have to be easy with the green smoothie, because a lot of people, they like to claim that they're doing green smoothie, but really it's like a fruit drink. But are you? What does your consumption of greens look like? When I'm saying greens, I mean like kale, spinach, arugula, bok choy. What does your green intake look like, along with the fiber intake? Next, how often are you eating? Are you snacking throughout the day? Are you eating 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day? Because those things are necessary. So let me go ahead and wrap these up, y'all. Wow. All right. All right. Cool. All right. What's the name of the tea for blood pressure? The name of the tea for blood pressure is called pressure tea. Let me go ahead and I'll post that in a link for you as well. I might have to come back and do that because I don't really, I'm not sure of the link. Thanks for educating me, perish for lack of knowledge. Yes, no problem. You're definitely welcome. My kidney is a little elevated, and I don't want to be on medication. I need your help. Okay, send me your information. Send me a message. Give me a little bit more context. My assistant will be checking the messages tomorrow. She'll be going through the DMs. I kind of had to get out the DMs, but she'll be in there tomorrow. All right. Yeah, beats are good. Too much pain in your feet. What is that like, off and on? So pain in your feet, I'm not sure if you're talking about neuropathy. I'm not sure if you're talking about PVD, peripheral vascular disease. What else do you have going on? Cynthia says, does salt make your blood pressure go up? It's a very good question, Cynthia, and I have the answer right here for you. So short answer is no, it does not. But I also made a video on that, and we post a link for that on my page. It's called The Truth About Salt. Truth about salt. There it goes. Yeah, so damn, that's an old video. All right, so I'm gonna copy and paste this link in there. But to answer your question, salt does not increase your blood pressure. What is she doing? In this video, I go over a lot of things as far as, where our main source of sodium comes from, and it's not what people think. And so, once again, quality of your question determines the quality of your health. There goes the link for that one. Definitely make sure you check that out if you have any questions about salt, because I actually recommend salt. Not table salt, but Himalayan salt, pink salt, because most people are actually deficient in potassium, magnesium. And these are the very minerals that are needed to have a healthy blood pressure level. All right. Bridget says, thank you. White coat syndrome because afraid of getting more meds if blood pressure high. Yeah. So white coat syndrome is real. Is real. It is a real thing. And that's why, before you really let someone just lay that diagnosis on you of having high blood pressure, at least do a 24-hour blood pressure monitoring with a Holter monitor. All right. This is a blood pressure monitor that's hooked up to you for 24 hours. It's non-invasive, and it's going to measure your blood pressure multiple times while you're out and about, at home, relaxed, and that'll give you a better idea of what your true blood pressure is. But once again, make sure you understand that your blood pressure is not the problem. It's indicating that it is a problem. Your blood pressure can be your ally. It can be your friend as far as being a diagnostic tool and understanding what's working and what's not working. All right. So just like how, your blood pressure goes up when you're stressed, well, the blood pressure is indicating that there is stress. It's indicating that there is a problem. And you know what that problem is, you know what that stress is. And it's doing the same thing with your vasculature. All right. So exercise, water, plant-based diet, otherwise nothing changes, correct? Yeah, if you don't do it with the lifestyle, nothing changes. Absolutely right. All right. Is it safe to stop taking blood pressure meds abruptly or come off gradually? So I cannot give you any medical advice because I'm not your medical practitioner. I don't have your medical history. I've never done a history and physical on you. But what I'll do is just answer in a very general way, but this is not medical advice. So no, I usually, when I have patients, when I have patients who come in, most of my patients, when they come in with issues as it pertains to blood pressure or type 2 diabetes and they're new, they're usually on medications. So I won't just take them off of their medications, but it will be a weaning off of the medications. And usually that's something that we do pretty quickly. Why? Because we find easy wins. I think that it's a shame when you have people taking medications for something like blood pressure or diabetes, and they don't know that the very juice and soda that they're drinking is making that whole situation worse or contributing to it. And they weren't informed that, if you want to continue to go down this road of high blood pressure, then continue drinking what you're drinking. But if you actually want to get off of these meds or decrease these meds, stop drinking them. Because I tell you, I can't tell you how many times it was like a light bulb going off in my patient's head when I'm like, you do this, you do that, you do this. And they're like, wait, you mean I can actually get off these medications? I'm like, yeah, you can get off the medications. Stop smoking. Or, yeah, you can get off the medications. Stop drinking the soda. Yeah, you can get off the medications. Stop eating multiple times a day. And it's like, oh, I didn't know I can get off the medications, or I didn't know. And so now they're incentivized to do better or do certain things because they don't like the medications in general, or the medications causing them side effects. So yeah, I'm not a fan of hearing patients, taking all these medications and they're not really fully informed of what they could be doing naturally to get these levels down. Now, once you understand naturally what to do and you still choose to continue down the road, then that's completely up to you. All right. How likely is it that coffee increases high blood pressure? Yeah, so for most people, coffee will increase blood pressure. For most people. Now, once again, this is not true hypertension. hypertension. This is not essential hypertension if it's transient, because this is a blood pressure that's responding to stimulant. That stimulant being caffeine, which is increasing the epinephrine and norepinephrine in your body. And so this is making your body more sympathetically dominant. And so once again, it's putting your body in that fight or flight, that stress state. However, once that caffeine has been metabolized and is out of your system, for most people, the blood pressure goes back down to normal. And so, in my opinion, this is not really true high blood pressure because it goes, it comes, it's transient based on stimulus. Whereas with true hypertension, we're talking about structural changes to the vasculature of the individual. Like your arteries actually have plaque buildup. Your arteries are actually stiff. Your arteries actually will not expand and recoil in the proper way. That's true hypertension. And that is a process that took time to happen. And it's going to be a process that's going to take time for it to be remodeled in a way to decrease your blood pressure. All right. Let's see. All right, y'all. I gotta go. 11:52. I gotta go. I gotta get up in a couple hours. So I appreciate you all. I hope that this provided value for you all. Once again, make sure you check out those videos. I put a video in there. One is called "The Truth About High Blood Pressure." That's going to answer all your questions about blood pressure for the most part, including my recommendations. And then I have another video in there explaining the truth about salt and high blood pressure, pretty much debunking this idea that salt is increasing your blood pressure. And I'm also letting you know just how important salt, not table salt, truly is for you. All right. So I appreciate y'all. I need to go lay down for a little bit so I can get back up. And yeah, that's it. Be sure to share the video and like the video. All right. So I appreciate you all. You have a good night. Remember, this is our community, our responsibility. We have what it takes. We just got to put in the work. All right. Love y'all. Peace.